I can't wait any longer.
Let's go.
I can't believe you committed suicide. I cannot believe you committed suicide. How could you have done this? How could you have committed suicide?
Damn, we need to make this thing even.
I can't believe it's you. Don't tell anyone. I'm not ready for this. Don't tell anyone. Thank you.
Hello and welcome all you Breen Weavers. This is My Scene with Breen and I am your host, Neil Knight. Firstly, an apology. It's been several months since the last episode, and this is for a few reasons, but mostly because a monthly release schedule has just become unrealistic. Finding more and more people willing to talk Breen has become more and more difficult. Also, the intention of last episode, where we spoke to 4 of the inmates from Neil's 6th film, was supposed to be the first part of a Cade the Tortured Crossing extravaganza. The second part, this episode, would have featured another 4 cast members with different roles. That idea kept being delayed as 2 of those cast members became trickier and trickier to pin down to a recording date. After hitting a brick wall several times, hitting my head against a brick wall several times, I decided to move onwards and upwards with this special episode that begins with Cade and finishes with Neil Breen's new and, as of recording, unreleased movie. Yes, while we've been away, there's been some significant Neil news. Back in September, Reddit user Vulvasaur, which is a name I thought I'd never have to say on a podcast, Vulvasaur revealed that Neil had registered the title Dire Duplicity for copyright, and then a few months later, on Neil's birthday no less, a trailer confirming this title was dropped on YouTube, also giving us our first glimpse of Breen's next magnus opus. And this very episode that you are listening to now will be revealing some tasty morsels, pushing those NDAs as far as they'll go, and looking behind the Breen curtain of Dire Duplicity. Not just this episode, in fact, we'll be returning to Dire Duplicity in our next episode with more cast member interviews. And if that wasn't enough to get you salivating, later on in the episode we'll be answering an age-old fateful findings debate. But for now, let's get started with Addyson Medley. Addyson had already picked up several movie credits before 2023's Cade the Tortured Crossing, including appearing as a hacker in Jason Bourne and a gambler in the Will Ferrell comedy The House. Addyson plays a corporate executive in Cade, and if you want to put a face to a name, he's the character in the science lab 76 minutes in who reveals he knows who the mole is in the hospital. In the upcoming chat, he reveals how Neil hypes himself up to the cast, his brief and concise direction, and teases us with a lost potential Neil Breen movie moment meme. Love a bit of alliteration. Where were you kind of in your career at this point?
Same place I am now, basically. Just, struggling actor, just doing, this and that, commercials, background work, and then audience filler things, conventions, etc.
So how did you find out about these auditions?
Well, I already knew who he was, so when I heard he was casting a movie, I was trying really hard to get on it. He's posting the roles on Facebook. There's like a Facebook actors page, and I saw it there, and then I got really excited, and I submitted for that through his email and stuff. I submitted like 5 times or something because I really wanted to do it.
Why? What was it that was attracting you to working with Neil Breen?
Well, I haven't really seen his movies myself, but I'm a fan of a lot of like content creators who review all of his movies, like Red Letter Media, Double Toasted, Your Movie Sucks. All my favorite reviewers all cover Neil Breen at some point. So I was like, it wasn't so much doing a Neil Breen movie, but being in a movie that they review that I wanted to be a part of, just be made fun of on their show.
So you were aware that there was a certain amount of mockery to his films, but you were still attracted to it anyway.
Yeah, I mean, I don't take myself that seriously. So, if I'm in something that's not great by technical standards, it's not going to be too bad for me. It wouldn't be the first time. people are watching this one though, as opposed to my other bad movies.
So that's it. Are you doing this for fun? Are you doing this just for the paycheck? Are you doing it just so it's another film on your credits?
All of the above. It mostly depends on what the gig is. Like, if something's bad and I'm getting good pay for it, sure. If it's good and if it's just an IMDb credit, I'll do that. If it's quality, but
For you, how did the audition process work?
There wasn't an audition process. I sent a bunch of times, and he wasn't getting back to me until like towards the very end. And I don't know for sure, but I think maybe he lost an actor or something, and that's why he brought me in, because I was brought in on the very last couple of days of filming. I just sent like my headshots and an acting reel. And then I remember I was in like the McDonald's drive-thru, and then I got a call from a random number, and then I answered, and it's like, "Hey, this is Neil Breen. I want you to come do my movie."
And what information does he give you there about your character, about the film? Do you get any at all?
Not really. I think the character description was just like corporate exec or something. So, when I showed up, it seemed pretty straightforward. I was playing this evil corporate dude.
So in your own words, after obviously, your time on set, seeing the movie afterwards, what knowledge do you have of your role and kind of how that fits into the narrative of the film?
Well, I haven't seen the full movie. I did watch the reviews of the movie, but I seemed to be, I guess my character was just like an evil corporate guy, and he was, man, I don't know. I don't know what my role was. I don't think people who've seen the movie know what my role was.
When you show up that kind of first day on set, how is the role? How is the film? What's expected of you? How's that all introduced to you?
Well, when I showed up, first thing Neil did was have me sign an NDA, which I found a little concerning. And then when you contact me, I was nervous about talking to you. So I went and talked to other people, and they said, "Oh yeah, it's fine. We've now that the movie's out, we can talk about it." So that was the first thing, was signing the NDA. And then I went in, and it's just this giant green stage, just a big green screen stage. And he's like, "Stand here." And I'm like, "Okay, where's the script?" And there's no script. So all my dialogue, he would just say to me out loud and then have me repeat it. And then I get a couple takes to do that. So, when I showed up, I didn't want to do goof off or be, give a sarcastic performance, because the reason people like Neil Breen and, Ed Wood and all that stuff, Tommy Wiseau, is because they're earnest filmmakers. So, I didn't want to compromise that by just giving a sarcastic performance or anything. So in the movie, I'm actually trying to be good, but in those circumstances, you're not going to give a good performance.
Obviously, I'm aware a little bit of, of the time it takes to shoot a movie. But you say you were on for 2 days.
Yeah, it was supposed to be 3 days. And then the first day we were just filming nonstop. And then the second day we were just there for a couple hours. And I don't even remember if I did anything. And then he canceled the third day.
So how much footage is kind of getting filmed? How many scenes or sections are you getting through in a day? Is there an awful lot getting filmed in a day?
Yeah, it seemed like there was a ton of stuff just from what I saw in the reviews and the trailer and stuff. I saw a lot of that stuff, even the stuff I wasn't in, because the entire cast was there except Jeremy. He was out of town at the time, but we were all there just filming different stuff at the same time.
And did you find it went quite smooth, or were you facing any kind of obstacles?
I mean, smooth isn't really the word I'd use, but we were pretty going through it pretty fast. There were a couple of hiccups. I remember Neil did not like my suit, the one I showed up with. It was kind of worn out, but I was like, he's not going to notice or care. But the first thing he's like, "Your blazer looks like shit." He didn't use those words, but he had a problem with it. So he does pay attention to those details, I guess. There was that, and then there's a scene I was really excited to do, which was I was hiring an assassin to kill someone I don't remember, I don't know the plot details, but I was hiring an assassin, and the way I was doing it was that I'd take the gun and then I'd hand it to the assassin, but the way I'd hand to the assassin was with the gun facing me in my hand with my hand on the trigger, like I'm trying to kill myself while I'm handing it to him. We did that like 10 times.
So were you directed to hold it like that?
Yes. Neil was very specific. He wanted me to hand the gun to the guy. So the way I'm handing it is like if someone is trying to shoot themselves in the heart.
Yes.
I'm just handing it to the guy like that, with the gun pointed directly at me with my hand on the trigger and everything, and then the guy taking it from me. When I was shooting it, I was like, okay, this is going to be the scene everyone talks about. Every review is going to do this. But that scene, I don't think ended up in the movie. So I guess even some things are too ridiculous, even for Neil Breen. Yeah, I filmed a fair bit. Like the whole gun scene was definitely something that was missing, and that one I was bummed got cut specifically because I thought it would have been like a meme or something. There's all these Neil Breen iconic moments, like him spilling coffee on keyboards or him fighting an invisible tiger, and then me handing the gun might have been up there, but it wasn't meant to be. Another thing was that Nicole was a little bothered by that scene too. Because I don't know if she talked about that, but, me handing a gun with the gun facing me, this was a little bit after the Alec Baldwin thing. So she got really upset about that. It was a fake gun, though. But if it had been a real gun, I would have been a little freaked out myself.
What is the atmosphere set? Is the confusion amongst the cast, like what's going on here? What have I got myself into? Or are people just having a good time and going along with it? Or
everyone was pretty like professional about it. Everyone there has done a bad movie before, to be blunt, but no one was really questioning everything too hard. I was the only one who was basically like understanding what we were doing, I think.
Was there any, like, what kind of reactions did you get from your fellow castmates when you were saying, well, I'm a little bit aware of this Neil Breen guy?
Well, Neil was there the whole time, so I wasn't like, hey, check this out. Watch this, but I'd just be like, yeah, he's a really famous guy. And then Neil himself told me that. I remember at lunch one day, he was just sitting around talking about his Q&A sessions and whatnot, and how he'd pack a theater and how people watch his stuff. So,
and how did you find just in general? How did you find Neil to kind of to communicate with and to work with?
He's a pretty serious guy. Not a lot of like small talk or anything. I remember there's only like one other crew member. It was like a guy operating the camera, and they had kind of like an old married couple thing going on. It was mainly that guy and him doing their own thing, and then the actors doing their own thing.
You said they were like an old married couple. Was this they were bickering, or just because? Yeah, they were bickering.
Lots of bickering. Yeah. Well, more Neil toward that guy. That guy is just like unassuming, but Neil would be like very catty toward him. Yeah, he's very serious. I don't think I ever even saw him smile on set, unless I think he smiled a couple of times at his own jokes. It'd just be like say something very dry and like cutting toward his assistants, stuff like that. Everything else was mostly business. One thing I didn't mention was that when he was directing me, the only real note he gave me was louder. He'd give me the line, I'd say the line, and it'd be all this techno babble, and I wouldn't have any idea what I was talking about. And all I say is, do it again louder.
And do you get much praise? Do you get kind of praise when when you finish that scene?
No. Praise was sitting down and then letting the next person do the next scene.
Why have you not kind of tracked the film down since then, just to kind of see the whole thing, to see the whole piece put together?
Well, I don't really like watching the stuff I'm in for the most part. I'm one of those guys, but also I found like a copy on YouTube one day, and then I just scrolled through my parts, and it seemed like I was only in like a minute of it. So I was like, I don't know if I really need to sit through the whole thing, just if I'm going to be in it for a minute.
Where did you go next then with your career after this?
Same place, really. A little bit after this, I had a role in a movie. It's a horror movie that Nicole produced. And then I had a scene with Lisa Wilcox from the Nightmare on Elm Street movies. It's something I'm pursuing, but I'm getting a little more realistic about it now. I'm probably not going to go too far with it. So I'm considering other avenues and still do it on the side when I can.
Do you look back on the experience fondly?
Oh yeah, it was a lot of fun. Just, meeting someone who's really has an actual foothold in the industry. People know him. I work with a lot of people no one knows. So seeing working with an actual famous person or infamous at least is interesting. It's a little different compared to just like really small movies or extra work.
Did he find anything out about Neil himself?
No, I have no idea about anything about his personal life. One thing I guess I found out is some people question how serious he is, like if he's doing all this ironically or making bad movies on purpose. And from what I could tell, no, he's very serious. He's actually trying to make serious movies. Did Nicole talk much about the kissing scene?
I think I did ask her about the kissing. I can't remember what she said. What did she say to you?
Well, I want to tell tales out of school. So if she didn't elaborate on it, I don't know if I should say anything.
Thank you to Addyson there for yet another fascinating look at the BREEN'S. And if you want to follow Addyson on Instagram, his username is AddymEdz. That's AddymEdz. And while I'm handing out thanks, can I please also thank you, the listeners, for your continued support. It was really heartening to see comments inquiring about new episodes during these past few months. People saying how much they enjoy the interviews, and one person even claiming My Scene with Breen was at the top of their end-of-year Spotify Unwrapped. It really meant a lot, so thank you for that. By the way of a thank you, here's some info on an infamous and occasionally debated fateful findings moment. Now, 6 minutes into Neil Breen's third feature film, our main protagonist, Dylan, is knocked over by a black car and a mysterious woman emerges from it. These long legs, ended with a pair of snakeskin high heels, bizarrely crop up every now and again with internet Breen weavers who not only wonder who this character is, but who supplied these slender pins to the film. Minutiae it may be, but I have genuinely seen this discussed at least 3 separate times this year. It would seem that many believe this was Victoria Viveros, who played the role of Amy, doubling up in another role to help out and spare the cost of another actress. Victoria appeared on this podcast back in episode 4, so I sent her a quick message to see if this mystery could be solved. Well, Victoria admitted that lower body half did in fact belong to her, and she hopes that confirmation will result in at least one of you winning a little bit of money. We can now stamp this mystery solved. Let us now move on to that Dire Duplicity exclusive chat with our second and final guest, Jeremy Chavez. The more observant or rabid fans amongst you will notice that despite usually staying away from reusing actors, Neil Breen has invited back several people he's previously worked with. Jason Morsiglio from Pass Through and Twisted Pair and episode 7 of this podcast returns for a hat-trick. Episode 11's Brad Stein from Twisted Pair returns with a voiceover he recorded and an off-the-record story he told me, which I'll keep trying to get him to come on and tell us. And finally, Jeremy Chavez, making a consecutive appearance from Cade, The Tortured Crossing. In the past 5 years, Jeremy has racked up 65 Internet Movie Database credits to his name, including such big Hollywood blockbusters as F1 and Venom: The Last Dance. In Cade: The Tortured Crossing, he's credited as a detective, first introduced 5.5 minutes in, sharply dressed in all black and declaring that was a hell of a fight. But he's also a very occasional inmate. In fact, after the car crash and the inmates are rescued by Cade, the patient played by last episode's Kevon Tyree is replaced for the long walk to salvation by Jeremy, only to disappear when they go inside Cade's castle. Jeremy's interview features Neil's not-so-snazzy movie premiere attire, advising others on the best way to work with Neil, and obviously some early information on Neil Breen's 7th feature film, Dire Duplicity. I know you were acting. Is this something that you were kind of pursuing quite ferociously, or?
Yeah. So I'll take a long story short here. I'm originally from Colorado here.
I moved out to Las Vegas to pursue a career in acting. I moved out in 2019, then 2020 hit, so that was kind of a rough, couple of years. Once movies started being made again, I follow a lot of Facebook pages, Instagram pages, casting call pages, and I seen this post up casting call. Neil Breen, I'm looking for actors, blah blah blah, and he had a list of names. He had a detective on there, and I'm ex law enforcement. I worked corrections, and then I was working security at the casino. So I was like, I'll try this out, because like it was a really slow start after COVID. So I was very excited to see these casting calls and go to these auditions because I'm like, I really want to get back into it. As soon as I moved to Vegas, for the first like 3 months, I was just hopping on sets. I was getting the experience. I was taking some classes, and so I was really trying to build this career. So when it got on pause, it hurt me. Like mentally. I'm just like, oh no, like I'm failing. So I went to this audition, and I was very nervous because I don't know if you ever done an audition before, but like in-person auditions, you usually walk into this room and they got spotlights on you, and there's a table like 10 feet back, with 3 to 5 people, and they're kind of really just direct, and they want you to stand on the X, and they want you to look at the camera, and they'll tell you, we'll have a reader, read your lines, this, that, the other. So like that's what I was kind of like expecting. I'm expecting, like to walk in. So I'm all did up. I did my hair. I'm wearing a nice suit. Like I'm ready to perform. And unfortunately, he didn't, give me any criteria, sides to practice. So, and that happens too. Sometimes you walk in, they give you a side, they give you a few minutes, and then you go, run the audition. So, I'm just like preparing myself for this audition. And I walk in, I'm expecting a secretary, I'm expecting something, and I see this guy, and he's kind of in some like raggedy clothes, and not what I pictured, like his hair is kind of just wild and everything. And so I walk in, and I was like, hi, how you doing? I'm like, I'm here for the Neil Breen, audition. And he's like, hi, I'm Neil Breen. Take a seat. And then we're just like, he sits me down at this table, and I'm like waiting for him to hand me sides or anything. And he's like, so are you an actor? And I'm like, yeah. And I gave him my resume. I gave him my headshot and everything. He looks at it and he goes, and what are you looking to do? I was like, I want to audition for the role of detective. And he was like, okay. And I was like, so I started explaining, I was like, I have 5 years of law enforcement for corrections. I'm, working on my second year here as security at the casino. I was like, I have all this background. I was like, I do private security as well, this, that. I'm trying to like really, let him know that I have this experience. He goes, all right, cool. Yeah, I'll give you a call. And I was just like, that's it. It was just him and me. Like there was no one else there, no cameras, no audition. It was just like an interview. And I'm in this full suit, like, and he's just in like a t-shirt and some shorts. And it was just like, I was just like, oh, maybe this is not legit. Like I didn't know who he was at the time, So I was just like, okay, this was kind of awkward. So I stood up, I shook his hand. I was like, thank you. I'll wait to hear from you. And I walked out, and I was like, so I went to my car and I started Googling him. I'm like, Neil Breen. And like everything started popping up. And I was like, oh, wow, like this dude's kind of big, like he has a big following. And so I waited, and it took about a month or so. Finally, he calls me. He was like, hey, are you available this day, this day, this day? We're going to start filming. I'm like, okay, cool. So he gives me, the address and stuff. I show up on set with a few different outfits, different types of suits, because I'm like, I thought I was playing a detective, so I'm like, I got a couple different suit outfits, and I have like, I have my own props and stuff too, as an actor. I bought all my stuff. So I have this, hanging badge and, like holsters and stuff. Like, so I show up like looking like a detective, and he was like, all right. He was like, do you have anything else to wear? And I was like, this is what I figured a detective would wear. I was like, I don't have any type of cop uniform. He was like, oh no, I'm gonna have you play a patient. And I was like, I don't have any like patient clothes. I was like, I probably have a couple regular plain t-shirts. So then he has me change and everything. And I'm kind of like, what is going on? Like, there's no like, it's kind of just out there. And then I walk in the set, and it's this giant green screen. I mean, it's a huge room, huge room, all green screen. I've never like experienced this before. And it's one camera, 2 lights, Neil, and one other guy. And I'm like, okay, I've never seen this before either, right? There's 2 people here. And there was a couple other castmates that I knew, and I was like, "Oh, hey!" So I started talking to them, and we're sitting there, and Neil walks up, and he's like, "All right," he's like, "We're gonna start shooting." He's like, "I just want to let you guys know, like, I make movies. I'm an independent film. This at the time I think was his 8th movie, 7th or 8th movie,
Sixth.
6th. Okay, so he was like really big on it. He was like, "This is my 6th independent film." He was like, "My other films have grossed, blah blah blah. I have 1 million followers." Like he's just hyping himself. He's talking himself up, and like I got excited. I'm like, "Okay, this is cool." Like, and everyone else is kind of like, "Man, all right, cool." So I was like, "We haven't got a script yet." I was like, "I don't know my lines." I was like, "Is there?" And he was like, "Don't worry about that. You're not going to need that." Walks away. So all of us are kind of like, "What are we doing?" Like, what are we doing? And it's a green screen. We don't know nothing. So then he just starts setting us places. Like, you're gonna stand here. You're gonna sit here. I want you doing this. I want you doing that. He sits me down. He's like, "All right, crisscross applesauce." He puts a piano in my lap, and he's like, "You're gonna be playing piano." And I was like, "I don't know how to play piano." He was like, just push the buttons. And I was like, "Okay." He walks in with his little leather jacket, and he has the camera set. He's talking to the dude. The dude's helping him with lights. He's setting up his camera. He hits record. He walks in front of the camera. He was like, "All right." He was like, "You guys just act like mental patients, and action." And he like starts doing his thing, and all of us are kind of just like, "Okay," so we're just kind of acting crazy, trying to like really just be like mental patients. And we like just did a few different scenes like that, and he's just running his lines and he's doing his thing, and then he had a couple of the other actors like, "Okay, you're gonna be a nurse and you're gonna walk up and you're gonna say this, this," and like he's just telling them what to say. And so then one of the nurses is like, "Well, like I didn't get the script. Can I see the script?" He's like, "You don't need to worry about the script. Don't worry about the script. You're not going to see the script." And all of us were just kind of like, "What is going on? Like, what do you mean we can't see the script? Like, we have no idea what's going on. No idea." And that's how it was like the whole every day of filming is we never knew what we were filming, and we never knew what was going on. Like he would just tell us to wear this and do that. And
Does that confusion, does that ever turn into negativity, or do you all just, you're completely cool with it? You just go for it.
Well, there was some actors who weren't very fond of that type of experience. For me, this was my probably like I want to say 15th, maybe 20th time on set. It was my like 7th or 8th feature film that I was a part of. Like I had been grinding. I tried that. My motto was, if there's a camera, I'm gonna be in front of it. So like I was hopping on all these projects, independent films, commercials, student films. I'm in everything. Like as soon as COVID, was done, I was hopping in front of a camera. So like for me, the experience was this was weird. It was awkward. It was different. But I'm like, there's a camera rolling. I'm in front of it. This is where I need to be. Everyone else was like, I don't even kind of want to like. They were kind of getting irritated. Like I'm not gonna name drop or anything, but like there was people that were getting like irritated and frustrated with it, and I'm just telling them like, "Hey guys, like I know this is weird, like, and I was like, this is awkward, this is weird. I've never been on a set like this before either, and there were some actors like I said that I knew because we have acted before, and then there was a couple like this was their first time acting, and so I explained to everyone, I'm like, this guy has a huge following. I said, we don't know what's going on. We're not going to know what this movie's going to look like. But guess what? Millions of people will see this movie, and our name is on it. I said, so that's the main point. That's where you got to put in your mind and put in your focus is like whether this is like the greatest movie and it's Oscar worthy or it's not. We're going to be seen by millions of people because this guy has a fan base already. He's built a fan base. I said, so this movie will be seen. It's not one of those where we're not sure if this movie is going to be seen or not. Like, guaranteed this movie is going to be seen by millions of people. People are going to buy it. People are going to watch it. People are going to love it. Like, he has a fan base. And, like, the veteran actors were kind of like, I guess I'll stick it out. And the newbies, they were kind of, like, excited and stuff. And I just told them, I said, just know that this is not how regular sets work, but I tried to just encourage them to not quit on this project and of course not quit on acting itself, because you're going to run into certain projects and you're going to do these things where you're just like, what am I doing? Like, why do I do this? But if you love the craft, you're always going to want to do it. But like, it was a very, very different experience. And up to that point, I had never done anything like that before. The room was completely green screen. So everything we recorded, Neil had to tell us what to do. So like there was a scene where we're walking up steps and it's a flat ground. There's no steps, you know? And so like he's just like, make it look like you're walking up steps, you know, and he's telling us what direction to walk, and we're walking these, you know, weird, you know, patterns and these zigzags. And you know, he's like, okay, you're gonna come up steps now, so make it look like you're walking up steps, you know. And so like it was a very wild orchestrated, you know, type thing, but it was fun. And I was very excited because, you know, we did all these different scenes and it was just us. I think there was maybe 10 of us actors, and the 10 of us plus Neil played everybody in Cade Crossing, right? So like I was a mental patient. And then we fight like a couple days in, we finally got to the day. He was like, okay, you're gonna be a detective today. And I was like, okay, like finally, okay, cool, you know. And then, you know, like I kind of seen how things were going, so I knew like how to follow him. Like, okay, he's gonna stand me here, he's gonna tell me what to say. I'm gonna say those lines, you know, like I'm just running with what he wants. It was just fun. It was fun to see because he would go and he'd look at the frame and everything, and he'd press play, you know, and he'd walk in front of the camera and he'd sit there and then he'd yell action and then just start running his lines, you know.
So just to take you back to the audition, why do you think Neil chooses to audition that way then? Is he just looking for a spark, some kind of magic? Because, you know, some people might think this could be detrimental to the film, that you're hiring people and you're not actually seeing them perform.
I'm honestly, I'm not sure with that one. You can run it many different ways, right? Maybe he wants that interview type presence to see, hey, what does this person bring into the table? Are they going to be professional? Are they going to be on time? You know what I mean? Like, you know, kind of just making sure that this is the right fit. Maybe it was just for the look. Do they fit my look? Do they fit what I'm trying to film, you know? Because like a lot of things come into play when it comes to, you know, earning the spot for the, you know, characters that we play. But me personally, I think he wanted to get to know us a little bit and then kind of just see if we're serious about acting. Because again, like there was a couple of us veterans who have acted before, and then there was a couple newbies who had never acted before, you know, and you can kind of see the difference. And of course, like me, just I'm a natural leader. I'm a natural person to help. So like if I see somebody who's, you know, like not doing so well, and Neil would get a little frustrated sometimes if he couldn't get them to do what he wanted. And he's not a coach, you know, he's a director and an actor. So he wasn't able to like explain to them how to do it in a coachable way. And I've coached sports my entire life. I've played sports my entire life. So like being able to coach, like be a quote unquote acting coach kind of, you know, with the knowledge and skills that I had, I was able to kind of help him out. So like if he was kind of getting irritated or frustrated with somebody, I'd pull them aside and be like, hey, you know, kind of do this or think about it like this. And I'd kind of just, you know, give him a little tip, kind of give him a help him out, and, you know, we'd be able to work together. And it helped out, you know, because I was able to kind of just explain to them where Neil was kind of like, I need you to do it like this. Like, you're not doing it like this. Just do it like this. And this is how the scene's going to go, and do it like this. As soon as I say, and I walk, you know, and he's kind of real, just straightforward, you know, and I have to, I was explaining to him, like, you guys got to realize too, like, we're on a time crunch. We have this rented out spot here for a limited time. We got to get all these scenes in. He's the director. He's doing all this on his own, you know, so like, yeah, he's going to be frustrated. He might get irritated if we don't nail this in one or two scenes. So like I would, you know, explain to him, like, don't take this personal. Don't, you know, think he's a bad guy. Like, you know, just let's practice this a little bit. Let's run it. We'll get it going. But like, I feel like that too is a lot of pressure, you know, on Neil himself to be the only one. I give him props for that, because like to do everything on your own. And I've dabbled in directing this year. You know, I started my own production company, and so I've directed a couple things, couple short films, a music video, and stuff like that. So, and then I've also acted in them as the director. So I know how hard, and like you're just like full of pressure and anxiety trying to get the right picture, but also be in the picture at the same time, you know, while directing everybody, but trying to direct yourself. And like it's it's a tough business. And I had my own cinematographers, I had some PA, like I had a crew with me helping me, and Neil does it. He's on his own. Like it's a one-man show. So like I can imagine like the pressures that he feels. And I'm like at the end of it, I'm just like, wow, this dude does it, he does this thing.
Is there ever any concern for Neil? Because he's a man in his senior years. He's taken on a hell of a lot of responsibility and pressure. Is there any ever kind of concern for him?
I feel there was some concern for me because he is in his senior era, which is crazy because I didn't realize how old he was until he told us his age, and I was like, oh wow, like you're up there. He doesn't act that way. He doesn't seem that. He doesn't look as old as he is, and like in Cade Crossing, there's a couple scenes where we're doing these fighting scenes and stuff like that, and these movements. And I'm kind of like, oh, like, this is an older gentleman. Like, is he going to be okay doing it? Like, and he did the scenes pretty well. The tiger fighting scene, which we didn't know what it was going on, right? Because it's just green screen. So he's just doing this scene, in the air. And we're like, what is he doing? He was like, don't worry about it. He was like, I know what I need to do. And so like, we're all kind of just sitting there, just, kind of on a break. Sort while he's doing his one scene fighting the tiger, and we didn't know that he was fighting a tiger until we watched the movie. We're like, oh, he's fighting a tiger, like, and but like there was moments where I was like, oh, like, is he gonna be good, but as far as like on set, you could tell when he would start to get a little frustrated. Morning, like we get there and everything's good, cool, calm, collected. There's some coffee, there's some donuts. Let's get the shoot in. So we, and slowly, gradually, we're doing these shots, and then, a couple hours in, you kind of see the little bit, more and more. And usually, towards the end of the day, you could tell he's a little stressed, a little frustrated, with everything. But like we're getting the shots done, but probably not in the timely manner that he needed us to, Because like you said, he's an independent film. So like the studio that we're in, he's renting that off his own money. The camera, the equipment, everything, like that's all his stuff, And so it's like, yeah, it could be very stressful to run that. And then, be at an age where he is to have, the stress of doing all this, plus working, plus acting, plus doing, quote unquote stunts, like it's a lot of moving parts for an older gentleman, but he nailed it. Like he's still kicking, like he's doing the thing.
And may I ask, what age did he give you when he told you how old he was?
When I first filmed, which was Cade Crossing, that was a few years ago, I think he said, if I do recall, he was 62.
So how many characters did you play then in Cade the Tortured Crossing?
I played, actually, let's see, one, I played the detective, I played the thug, I played the hero, and the mental patient and the nurse. So I played 5. It's funny too because I have I have tattoos.
Yeah.
So if you really watch and you pay attention in the Tortured Crossing, in the fight scene when you have the masked thugs, fighting the people, like you see my hand tattoo on one side and then you see my tattoos on the other side. So it's like essentially I'm fighting myself. Filming that scene was super awkward. It's super funny because he had us all dressed up, in ski masks and everything. And then he's just having us throw these punches and kicks. And, he's telling us, like roundhouse, uppercut, jab, jab. Like he's like if we're boxing or something. And then we took a little 10-minute break because we got all hot and sweaty. And then we changed and he had us line up on the opposite side of where we were just standing. And he was like, all right, we're going to do the same thing. And so he's like, roundhouse kick, uppercut, punch, kick, and so we're just like essentially, just air boxing. And all of us were like, what is going on? So then on premiere day, when we're all watching this movie, we're like, look at, like, we're kind of just having fun with it because we had no idea. None of the backgrounds, we didn't know what was going to look like. We had no idea what the scenes were going to be. Because like I said, he don't let us read the script. We don't know nothing about the storyline. We don't know nothing about the script. So he has a notebook. And that's where he, honestly, I'm not even sure if it's in script form or if it's just in story form. Nobody gets to see the notebook. That's his his notebook. So he'll go and he'll read his stuff and then he'll tell us what to do. And so like, I think that maybe, and this is just my speculation, he does it on purpose to keep the actors from trying to piece together the movie before it's released.
Where does that come from, that secretive nature he's got over his work?
I think personally, because his fame. I think it's his way of keeping the fans on their toes. Because, say we finish filming and somebody's like, hey, I'm a big Neil B fan. Can you tell me about the movie? Someone spills the movie, then they go and they do a podcast interview, a paper, tweet or something like that, and then it ruins, spoilers for all of his legit fans. So like I think he does that to protect his brand, his name, and his fan base.
Did you go to I know there's a little cast party, I think, wasn't there, to watch the film?
We did a red carpet event type thing. I guess a movie premiere at one of our local libraries. He rented out the library room, and we kind of all, we all dressed up. And that's the funny part, right? So he called it, a red carpet premiere for the movie. And you show up, you're in your suit and your tie. Sometimes you got people with cameras interviewing, taking pictures. Even like the independent films, the student films, the short form films, like anytime we do premieres, they always have at least one or two cameras taking pictures and, recording, the behind the scenes for this, event. And so like all of us showed up, dressed to the nines. Like the women were in these dresses, stunning dresses. All of us fellas, had some type of suit or suit jacket or something. I came in my 3-piece suit, like, expecting, a red carpet type event. And it was at the library, and I've done events at the library too, where the crew members will roll out a small little red carpet section where we could take pictures. So I was like, okay, I've done this at the libraries before. I know how this works. And so like we all show up, and I'm like, oh man, everyone's looking good. Like there's no cameras, there's not. And then Neil comes up in a t-shirt and shorts, like no suit at all. And I was just like, oh. I'm like, okay, so like this is Neil. This is how Neil is on a regular basis, And he was like, all right, guys, come in, sit down. He's like, we'll watch the movie. And it was kind of like like no one's going to interview us. No pictures, no nothing. Okay, cool. And so we went in and we watched the movie, and it was fun because like I said, we like getting to see what we just made on green screen, the backgrounds, what it looked like, of course, like all of us are like, hey, like, remember when we were walking up the stairs? Like, hey, that's that scene, and like, hey, remember when Neil was doing nothing, like he's fighting a tiger, like and like so we just kind of just enjoyed it, had fun, and we watched the movie. And then he was like, all right, thank you guys, appreciate you, thank you so much, it's going to be released this day, and then we all left. So it was a very quick movie premiere type thing, but we did get to watch it before everyone else as soon as he was done editing it and everything. And
how do you feel after you've seen the movie? Is there any kind of concern at all that you might become part of what some people see as a joke?
For me, not at all. Not at all. I'm a firm believer in all publicity is good publicity. Other people, of course, like they were like, I'm never working for this guy again. I won't do it. And I was like, I straight up told him, I gave him my card. I said, let me know if you ever need me again. Like, I'll do this again, because in my mind, like, yeah, all publicity is good publicity. Whether you hate it or you love it, you watched it, you seen me, you know my name. And, just from the first Neil Breen film, of course, this podcast we've been trying to get to for a while, but I've had other people contact me and we're like, hey, I seen you, I loved it. Can I get an autograph? Is there a way, blah, blah, blah. Like there was somebody who was like, hey, I bought the movie. Would you mind signing it for me? If I see you, because they're in Vegas. I'm like, and I'm like, yeah, if we end up getting to meet one day, yeah, I'll sign it for you. Like, and I'm like, this ain't even this is the Neil Breen film, but this is what comes with it. So like for me, I'm like, I'll do every Neil Breen film, because like mockery or not, you're watching it, hate it or love it, you've seen it, and the views are what matter the most for me as an actor. Like if I do a project that gets millions of views, then okay, cool, we're doing the thing, we're doing what we're supposed to do, we're reaching audiences, versus the one that may have costed millions of dollars to make, had a big crew, but was only seen by 200 people. Which is why like I was so excited when Neil called me this year to go back for another film. And a lot of people, they told me, like my friends from the first one, they were like, I'm not going to do it. Are you going to do it? And I was like, heck yeah, I'm doing it. Like, there's no way I'm not going to do it. And they're like, really? Like, really? You've seen the content. And I'm like, yeah, but that's his brand. That's the Neil Breen. Those are his films. I'm like, Michael Bay has his way of making films. Christopher Nolan has his way of making films. I'm like, Neil Breen has his way of making films. I was like, and he has a fan base. I'm like, so yeah, I'm going to go back. And I was super excited. Neil called me and I was like, oh, absolutely. Let me know where I'm there. And so I was very blessed to be able to make another one with him.
Well, yeah, that brings us quite neatly onto where we would have gone next with, what can you tell us about who you're playing?
And that one, again, because this one's so newer, I can't really say much, but I will say that I am playing a few different characters, and we had some fun action scenes. And yeah, I just, to be there on set again with Neil, I already knew what I was coming into, working with him previously. So I knew how it works, how he does, his things. And this time I was very shocked, though. I thought we were going to be in front of a green screen again. We actually were in front of an actual landscape set. We were working on set, inside, outside, in rooms, so that was a different experience to see. And we also had a few more crew members, and I think only because we were working outside of just one room, we were working on a set, so he needed lighting people to help with lighting and stuff like that, because when we're working outside at night, it takes certain types of lights and lightings to make it still look night but give us enough light that you can see the action and stuff that's going on. So it was a little different when I walked on the set and I seen more than just Neil. And I was like, oh, we actually have, 5 people here, working. That was a little different for me, of course. And then, the second movie, I didn't have to go to an interview or audition. He just called me and was like, hey, he was like, it's me. It was so funny because I have his number, and he was like, hey, is this Jeremy? I'm like, yeah. He was like, hey, this is Neil Breen. I don't know if you remember, but we made a film together a couple years ago. I was like, yeah, Neil. I'm like, you're Neil Breen, dude. Of course I know who you are. Like, I'm a fan now. And he was like, okay. He was like, well, I would love to see if you wanted to work together again. We're filming, these 2 weeks, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, I'm there. I'm like, just send me the dates and locations. I'm like, I'm putting you in the schedule right now. I'm clearing my schedule. I'm in a Neil Breen film. Let's do this. And he was like, all right, cool, awesome. I'll see you there. Click. I was like, all right. And then, yeah, sure enough, a couple days later, he texted me the address and stuff, and we got it going.
I know the fans very much hoped that the next film, they did hope it would go back to real sets, real locations. And I think many thought it probably wouldn't. Have you any idea why he's decided to go back to location shooting and real interiors and such?
My guess, and this is just, again, speculation, is probably the amount of work it has to do with green screen and getting the effects in. I don't know how, I don't do those myself, but I could imagine that it's pretty stressful and takes a long time to do. Really getting the scenes, getting the background, getting everything that you need to look in the back, how it's supposed to be, especially with moving parts. I feel that would be pretty time consuming and hard to do. And maybe that's just something he just is like, you know what, I'm not gonna do that again. And then of course, also it could be just the scene, the movie itself. Again, I was trying to piece the pieces together. The way we shoot, the way we film never made sense to me. The characters, the changes and stuff, no idea what's going on. So I'm not sure if this is a continuous movie from Crossings or if this is a completely different entity. I feel like it's similar or the same because Neil's character I feel is the same character. But again, that's just my own personal speculations, trying to piece it together. But like I said, we don't ever film in order. We film sporadic different scenes, and it definitely keeps us on our toes, especially because sometimes we'll be like, okay, we're gonna do this scene, and then we change, we do this scene, and then we change back into this wardrobe to do this different scenes. And it was like, well, I could have stayed in this wardrobe and we could have just knocked out these scenes. But we go back and forth, and it really does keep us on our toes and kind of scrambled to like, all right, we have no idea what's going on, but we're gonna run with it.
And what have you managed to piece together about the plot?
I feel it's got a murder mystery type of genre to it. There's a couple of scenes where it's got these moments of kind of like a guess who or a clue type of vibe, in the way we filmed it in our dialogue and stuff. So I think it's gonna be an exciting film as far as like a murder mystery type thriller. Of course, this is again only speculation. I didn't get to read the script or anything, but yeah, I think it's a little different from the kind of superhero character of Cade, who goes and rescues the damsels in distress.
Has Neil changed as a director? Did you see any kind of difference, any evolution?
It was the only thing that changed was of course, like I said, we had a bigger crew, and a lot of people didn't hop on the Neil train right away. So there was a little bit of bumping heads of like, Neil's like, I want it done this way. And they're like, well, it would be better. And he's like, I want it done this way. And they're like, well, it should be done. And he's like, I want it done this way. And it's like, I'm like, hey, this is his movie. Listen to him. I'm like, just do what he says.
Do you mean in reference to the crew? Yeah.
Yeah. So like, like they're trying to set up a light and he's like, I don't like that. Do it this way. And they're like, well, but like, and he's like, and I'm just like, dude, just like, this is his movie. Like, if it doesn't make sense to you, that's fine. Cause it makes sense to him. And he's the editor, the director, he does the whole thing. So like, if it makes sense to him, let him do it his way. So for like the first few days, it was kind of like headbutt. And finally everyone was like, all right, you know what? Your way, let's do it. And there was some new actors too, who were kind of like upset, so there's a scene where we have, of course, prop guns and stuff, and we do this, scene, and they're like, oh well, I'm ex-military, so we're gonna hold it like this, we're gonna do it like this, and Neil's like, I want you to do it this way, and they're like, but properly, realistically, and I'm like, dude, just do it how he says. Just do it how he says. Like, I'm like, this is a Neil Breen film, and you could see, again, like I said, he gets a little frustrated and irritated, and I could see that, like he wasn't used to working with others, with the crew, and he was very frustrated with the actors. Of course, everyone wants to put in their 2 cents. Everybody wants to be like, well, that looks good, but it would be better. And I'm like, guys, he's the director. You listen to what he wants and you do what he says. That's how we as actors are supposed to be, So like, even at times I was kind of like, wow, like a couple of these actors are just asking these questions, or like, like, oh, you know what? It would be better if we did it this way. And I'm just like, did you really just say that to the director? Like, you wouldn't say that to Michael Bay. You're not going to say that to Martin Scorsese, or however you say his name. You know what I mean? Like, you're not going to say it to any of these guys. You shouldn't be saying it to Neil, like, and I would kind of sit down with these actors at lunch and kind of let them know, like, hey, like, I know, like, we all have our own, opinions and our own thoughts on how scenes and characters should act. I said, but as actors, it is our job to portray the character how the director wants us to portray them, not how we want to, not how we feel or think it's going to look. It's how the director wants it and how he wants it to look. I said, so you do whatever he says, you just go with it. If it doesn't make sense, that's fine. It makes sense to him. And that's the only one it needs to make sense to, because he's the director and the editor. He's making this film how he wants it to look and how he wants it to feel. So and so like after the few days, you could see that the stress levels, of Neil kind of lowered, because no one was butting heads. Nobody, kept getting on each other, well, it would be better this way if we do it, so like it kind of calmed down towards the end of the, filming days. But the first couple of days was like, it was a lot different from the whole green screen, 2-man crew, 1 camera. And the second movie too, we had 2 cameras as well. So that was a little different.
So Neil's very first film, he had a full crew. And then, yes, eventually, I think quite quickly, it got to just him and, is it John Mastrogiacomo, is he called? Was John back on this one?
John. No, John wasn't on this one.
He wasn't on this one, right. Because then if he just has one person, he can do it his way. So it's interesting that he's gone back to having a crew.
A crew. Yeah.
For this one.
And I feel, too, that might be a part of, him getting older. Like, he's getting older, so it's like it's kind of hard to do all these things on your own. And of course, I think the environment too. In the green screen room, we're in one room, so setting up moving lights, super simple, super easy. But when we're in real world, environments and sets, we have to have a room where we keep all the equipment so that it's safe, and then we have to carry the equipment to set it up, set up the scene, tear it down, move it to the next one. It's not just one room. And, doing that with just yourself and one other person, that's time consuming, and of course we're trying to film, a movie in, 2-3 weeks. We're trying to knock this out as fast as we can, because every day he's paying to rent out this space, so it's like, okay, the more we get shot in a day, the easier it is, for his bank, his wallet, right? We don't have to rent out the time, the space for more. So like I think that mindset too of like, okay, we're in a bigger environment, we're in the real world environment. I need more people to be able to grab stuff, to to be the crew, like, oh, grab this light, grab that, grab this equipment, grab that mic, let's do this. And I think that too comes into play when it comes to him getting more crew members.
Where for you now? What's any projects coming up?
I have actually quite a bit of stuff coming out. Independent films, a couple short films that I'm making and producing that I filmed myself. Plethora of commercials in Vegas. Almost every casino billboard you'll see me on. But I took the month off. I'm here in Colorado visiting my kids, and then I'll go back in January, and go back running. I already have plans to make 2 feature films. And I have 3 short films of mine that I'm gonna film next year. And so, kind of just staying busy, keeping busy, trying to keep it going, keep hopping in front of a camera and letting everyone see who I am and what I can do.
As my final question before we say goodbye, in Cade, the Tortured Crossing, your theory on who is the Tiger Lady, how does she relate to Cade?
I feel that was a dream sequence. And that's my theory, is that it was a dream sequence of him battling to, in a sense, his inner tiger, his inner demons, to become the hero that he wanted to be or needs to be to protect the, the mental silent people, It was that whole, like, watching the very first time watching it, it was kind of like, what is going on? Where did this tiger come from? So my theory is that it was a dream sequence of him kind of fighting, his heroism, as you would say it, Yeah, no, that is a secret that is going to go down with Neil. I don't think anybody is going to know the truth behind the tiger. He's very, very secretive. You know what I mean? That's a Neil Breen film. It's not a Neil Breen film unless he has a little bit of that spice added to it,
Well, I mean, some people think maybe even Neil doesn't know himself sometimes. Well,
what? I can see that. He's kind of just he's fun. He's a fun character. He's a very different director, actor, human being, man that I've ever met, and it's very humbling as well, because he doesn't dress up. He's not in a gold plated suit all the time. He doesn't walk around with security. He doesn't like he's just him. And I think that's a really cool characteristic of his, is like that. If you don't know what Neil Breen looks like, you might have passed him at the grocery store, because he probably he just be out in the real world doing his thing. And I think that's awesome, because he's a celebrity. He's got a following. He's got a great catalog of movies, and whether you like him or hate him, his name, and that's really what's important.
Thank you so much to Jeremy there for not just his Cade insight, but of course his honest and tantalising comments about the most anticipated movie of 2026. And you can follow Jeremy on Instagram. His username is Jeremy_Chavez60. As I mentioned at the top of the show, a monthly release schedule for My Scene with Breen is now not realistic. So new episodes will come out here and there, really, whenever new actors or crew can be tracked down and recorded. However, with a new film coming out soon, that means new wonderful people to talk to. And in fact, one other Dire Duplicity interview is already in the bank, with a few more agreed to and hopefully on the way. So please subscribe and like and rate, and you'll get that episode as soon as it drops. Time for me to go now. I need to do a little bit of landscape planning for the back of my garden here, actually. It's really gotten into quite a state. It's very barren, like cracked, dry soil, like the Nevada desert. I was thinking of maybe getting some garden decorations to really spruce it up. Maybe a single rose sprouting from the ground, a tiger, some old tuna cans just dotted around, randomly placed doll heads, all leading to the main focal point of the corpses of 300 million humans. Goodbye.
You've been listening to My Scene with Breen, a Neil Breen podcast and a Bite My Thumb production. Your host was Neil Knight. Bite My Thumb can be followed on Twitter or X at Bite My Thumb, on Twitch at twitch.tv/bitemythumb, on YouTube at bitemythumbtv, or on Letterboxd at bitemythumb. All music was written and created by Cotsplays. He can be followed on Twitch at twitch.tv/Cotsplays, where every Saturday morning at 12 p.m. he'll be making live music. Please don't forget to like, subscribe, share, and rate this episode.